All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are so excited today on the Rush Hour podcast to talk to an octopus expert, founder of Octonation. It's Warren Carlyle. How are you?
Hey, what's going on?
Well, not much, but I cover a story last week about an octopus riding a mako shark, and next thing you know, we beam in an octopus expert. How about that?
It's amazing. I had so many people reach out, and I was like, I feel like I've been summoned. So I had people reach out to me. They're like, Dave's talking about an octopus. You should totally, reach out to him and let him know that you're available. I'm like, okay.
Now you sent me this amazing package for my son. You got this, and by the way, this is his favorite. This is this little octopus here with it's a little finger puppet. And I was like, all right, he'll send me a little finger puppet. And then you send me this monstrosity, this beautiful, gigantic. Are these life size? Is this how they're supposed
Yeah,
to
I
be?
mean, I guess you could call that life size. That's supposed to be like a giant Pacific octopus, but I figured since you covered that Maori octopus that was riding on top of that shark, that species is actually the largest octopus species in the southern hemisphere, or one of them. And so they're actually kind of like around that size ish.
Yeah, my channel, we cover a bunch of pop culture, but I always try to have like an animal story because it's apolitical. We all love animals. And, whenever a story like this takes off, which was, I think the video was actually not even new. It was like a year old, but this article circulated of octopus hitchhiking on a mako shark. Is this like a new Nemo movie we need to make, or like what's going on with that connection?
Yeah, it's funny because the whole entire reason I started Octonation, I believe in 2015, I was working as a studio manager for a celebrity fashion photographer in New York, and I kept seeing all these headlines like octopuses are eight-armed underwater bullies and things like that. And I was like, somebody has got to be the PR agent for the octopus. And so I essentially just started covering. I'm like, hey, this is actually what's going on, or actually octopuses or this or that. And so when I saw that article, it's like, this is mysterious. This has never been seen before. I'm like, this has been happening for hundreds of millions of years. Like, I don't know if you've ever having a toddler, has he ever gotten food on top of his head before?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. So, essentially octopuses are trying to avoid being eaten. And what they'll do is they have this defense mechanism called clinging. So like a stage 8 clinger is like, he will attach to the roof of that shark's head and essentially latch on almost like a sentient Chinese finger trap, and so, that shark was trying to shake off, that octopus. And if you know anything about that type of shark, they're one of the fastest sharks in our ocean. They can swim up to 40 plus miles per hour. And what they'll do is they'll jump out of the water and they'll use that as a way to kind of almost like decapitate or like cut their prey in half. They'll use that force of their thing to do that. And so what we know about that type of octopus, or octopuses in general, is that they're trying to dislodge, or they're trying to make sure that they're tenderizing that octopus because those arms can almost act for themselves. So, if an arm is away from the host or dismembered or dislodged, it can still operate for up to an hour, and it can go and it could potentially suffocate or go and latch on to the gills of anything. And they did a study with bottlenose dolphins where there was the same species of octopus killed a bottlenose dolphin because the bottlenose dolphin was jumping out of the water and ramming an octopus on the water surface to kind of disorient it and break it apart, but it didn't work, and it ended up suffocating or asphyxiating the bottlenose dolphin. So same thing is happening here with the shark. It's trying to make the octopus its lunch. They're squishy floating protein bars, but the octopus, you could tell, it looked like a statue on like that shark's head. Like it wasn't going anywhere.
Oh yeah. Now
and that's by design.
Yeah, so they've got eight legs, and they each have their own sort of brain, right? Like each one moves independently of itself. And if they lose one, do they regenerate, or are they just left with the remainder?
Yeah, and so all of them, octopuses actually have 8 arms. So no legs, 8 arms.
Oh, sorry, 8 arms.
And they also, another thing, a fun fact for those watching is they don't have any tentacles. So a lot of times people will say, oh, an octopus is tentacle. They don't have those. Squids have tentacles, and they look completely different than arms. So with those arms, they'll latch on. Those suckers have actually olfactory organs in them, so they can smell, they can taste. They're also made up of the same protein that our eyes are made out of. They have opsin in them, so they can actually kind of see and sense light as well. And so, yeah, they even if they're dislodged, or say that shark were to rip off one of those octopus's arms, that doesn't mean that that arm is just now free floating and defenseless. It still has those suckers and can latch on and do some damage. So those sharks know that. They've known that for a long, long time, which is why, they are trying to, swim as fast as they can, or like jump out of the water and kind of disorient it. There was this huge study with those bottlenose dolphins, and I'm thinking that this is kind of like the same thing, where like those bottlenose dolphins, I don't know if you've ever seen the videos of like fishermen that beat octopuses against rocks to kind of tenderize them. I don't know who learned it from who, bottlenose dolphins from the fishermen or vice versa, but they learned that if you want to take out an octopus, you really need to do some damage on it, because they're super smart. And so that's kind of what we were seeing here.
There's some animals, right? You have some fried calamari, whatever, but octopus, they are so smart. Do you guys dabble with any of the ethical concerns with, people that do eat them as like a delicacy?
No, we don't. Only because, like, here's the thing: what I've discovered with octopuses and eating is like it's such a cultural thing. There are people that live off of the ocean, like the people in Hawaii, people in Japan, and they've for thousands and thousands of years have utilized the octopus as a source of protein. Just like us here in the States, we pretty much for the longest time where it's like cattle,
Right.
Pigs, things like that. And so I kind of look at it as if like you can do what you want. Octonation, we just inspire wonder of the ocean. So we feel like there's enough work to do with ocean literacy in general, that getting into the conversations around ethical concerns of consumption and stuff like that, it's like that's later on down the road. But for right now, I think people are so confused at what is an octopus. And I feel like to get even like sending your kid Augie this octopus, you have to get them first to consider an animal in the ocean, and then that leads to stewardship. But if there's no context as to what is the octopus, how smart is it, why does it matter, then you can't begin to have a conversation on ethical concerns. And so I feel like we're still very much back here teaching Octopus 101 to the world, especially after headlines like, this is such a mysterious event, no one's ever seen this before. I'm like, I've seen this video, I've seen instances of this over and over again with eels, with humans, with sharks, my octopus teacher, the relationship between that shark and the octopus, it's like they're food. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, yeah, in the end, right, exactly. We're all food. What's interesting is a couple, because it's really what you're talking about. It's really about building empathy, and the more you learn about other cultures and human cultures, but also the culture of the sea, the more that education leads you to kind of see them as interesting as they are. Like octopus exist, in every corner of the ocean. Yeah. Now I've been on a bunch of these stupid snorkeling trips there, and I've never seen one. Have you ever seen caught one? Have you ever seen one accidentally? You go to the aquarium and they have one in the cage, whatever. But have you ever seen one in the wild?
I haven't gone looking to catch one, but during the pandemic is when Octonation kind of took off, because we did these virtual octopus encounters. I don't know if you remember, but remember all the aquariums shut down?
Yeah.
But they were still hemorrhaging millions of dollars having to feed and take care of these animals, but they couldn't get any admission because people couldn't go to the aquariums. So I started doing these virtual octopus encounters and introducing people to the octopus while they were in their living room. But it wasn't until just recently that I actually went, because I always tell people I work in the octopus's administrative offices on land. Like, I'm not so much of a let's go out into the ocean person. But my scientific advisor, she took me out snorkeling, and she's known as the Octo Girl on Instagram. And she's a cephalopod researcher. She's one of the best in the world. And she took me out and she goes, I know exactly where they are. She's like the octopus whisperer. And I was like, these dumb lungs, because I would swim down and I would just be hanging out with it. And I'd be like, I have to breathe. It's like so annoying. And so, but it was funny because it's one of those things where it's looking at you just as much as you're looking at it. And it's considering you, and you can tell it's like looking up and being like, what are you doing down here? Like, what is this? And so it's like, I don't know if you've ever looked at a dog or anything like that, and the dog says, hey, I need to go outside, or hey, I'm hungry, give me a treat, or hey, I'm, XYZ. When you look at an octopus, you can tell it's very much thinking that same way. It's like, okay, what do we got going on today? Or what are you here for? Or like, how long, it's kind of like that sort of relationship, which is stranger than most animals.
And it sounds silly to even ask, but I kind of feel like you never know what kind of sixth sense thing is happening, like telepathically too, because these are animals. I don't know too much about them, but I guess there's a theory that they came to Earth as frozen eggs on a meteorite 400 million years ago. Is there any fact to that? Is it that the DNA doesn't resemble most animals?
So the best video you could watch on this is Octopuses Aren't Aliens, but They're Still Awesome on YouTube. Donna Stoff, who is an incredible, researcher, she has a hilarious video on YouTube where it's like octopuses are not alien, they're not extraterrestrial, they're super terrestrial, meaning they originated life, like they developed and evolved here on this planet. And I think why we want to make them aliens so bad is just because they represent something here on this planet that's been here before dinosaurs and has survived through mass extinctive events that is squishy. It has, a decentralized nervous system. So 2/3 of its neurons are located in its arm. Like there's so many weird things about it that it's easy for us to kind of just like immediately go to like a low hanging fruit thing, which being like, that's weird, that's alien.
Yeah, that's me. I'm an idiot. I got, and again, I'm not trying to grill you here, but I've always imagined, for those listening on the audio only on the YouTube here, I've always imagined them, we try to make everything look like a human. So what's going on? What's going on with this giant brain part thing that's flopping down? Like what's that?
So that is an octopus's mantle, and that's essentially like, that would be like your torso. So imagine all of its bodily organs are in that thing, that like bag of tricks behind its head. Gotcha. Its brain, if you're looking at its brain, between its two eyes has a donut-shaped brain that wraps around its esophagus. So imagine everything you eat passing through your brain on the way to your stomach. So that's why when people are like, an octopus, they're kind of like afraid of them. I'm just like, it couldn't even begin to take a bite out of you because its brain would explode. Like it really has to like turn everything that it eats pretty much into like a protein smoothie with its saliva. So it takes a long time for those things to kind of work out. They're actually not interested in humans, pretty much like not at all, because they're like, wait a minute, I can't really eat you. So not really interested.
I did see a video, TikTok, it'll show you. You watch one octopus video, next thing you know. I did see a video of an octopus kind of gripping a snorkeler by its mast. So I mean, it could like strike. Like I've seen them like kind of bear hugging the sharks where they're strangling them at the gills. So
that actually ties into that same shark video where it's like that was a fisherman or a spear diver. And those octopus essentially, you could see that it inked. And inking is really one of those last lines of defense too. And an octopus doesn't want to ink. It doesn't just do that because it actually damages, some of its like tissues and stuff like that. So that's like a terrified octopus. And then it does that clinging mechanism where it's just like, okay, I need to latch every sucker that I have onto your skin to protect my arms from getting eaten. And so it'll latch on. And be like, I need every sucker latched onto everything that I can find. And so, of course, it was kind of like going towards its mouth and stuff like that. But I also think that video was kind of staged too, because what has become very popular, especially on platforms like TikTok, is harassment of wildlife for social media clout.
Yeah.
And you see that a lot with octopuses, them creating narratives or storylines where I'm just like, at the end of the day, an octopus that is out of a den is pretty much food. So they never want to be out in the open ocean. They're not, gallivanting majestically like octopuses, like in Finding Dory and Hank. They're den animals. So if they're not, hiding, then they're trying to eat and then go back to hide. So if you ever see one out in the ocean, like you mentioned, snorkeling, you're like, I don't see them ever. It's like, they're a floating protein bar. They do not want to be out gallivanting in the ocean because everything wants to eat them, which is why they evolved. If you look at your stuffed animal, if you look at those pupils, they have, these horizontal shaped bars. They evolved nearly 360-degree vision over hundreds of millions of years because everything wants to eat them. And so they don't have a blind spot. So they can literally see clear around their head. It's almost if like you had two panoramic cameras on the sides of your head.
Yeah, I'm so impressed with the stuffed animal. Like what one side has this little doodad sticking out.
A quick funny story is the first time, because I ever educated like a like 3 or 4 year old like classroom. I think it was like a pre-K classroom, and I was like, okay, I have this great idea because octopus poop looks like silly string, and they blast it out of that little orange thing that you were pointing to.
Funny. This is
And
like a
so,
prolapsed butthole. That's what
yeah.
this is.
So what I did was I brought in silly string, and I didn't think that the kids wouldn't know like. So I was like, octopus poops looks like silly string, and I was like showing where they did it, and then I sprayed the class with silly string, and they legitimately thought that it was octopus poop. And so I was like, I don't know if I traumatized these kids or if like this is the best lesson they've ever learned. But I was just like, okay, maybe I need to do better with kids. You know?
I'm sure you were the coolest person that month over there. And it brings me to the one question I wanted to ask you. I love here with the world of content creation. I always tell people you got to niche down. I don't know if there's a tighter niche than becoming an octopus expert. But walk me through. Like, was this? I think I saw that you mentioned, you first went to, saw an octopus as a younger kid. Like, what? Yeah. When did you think this could become a career?
So I was also, when I was a kid, I was diagnosed autistic and ADHD, and I would make flashcards for everything. So dog breeds, anything that you could think of. I really wouldn't talk. I would just make flashcards for things. And I went to the library to make flashcards on octopuses, and there weren't any books for kids about octopuses. And so if you know anything about kids with like autism or ADHD, we have like this justice sensitivity thing where we're just like, why all these books about other animals and not books about the octopus? So I created this open loop pretty much my whole entire life that the octopus was like the most slept on creature like on the planet. And it wasn't really until I had kind of like moved to New York. My mom passed away. I moved to New York, and I got in this influencer marketing, a studio manager for a celebrity fashion photographer thing where I was like, okay, all clothes are people reverse engineering the relevancy of cloth and making it into something that people associate with wealth or status or something. And I was like, couldn't I do the same thing with my favorite thing, like the octopus? And so I was like, I want to be the octopus's PR agent. And so I essentially just dubbed myself that, and I reached out to Cy Montgomery, who wrote the book The Soul of an Octopus. It came out in 2015. And I said, Cy, and I was just like, I sent her an email, and I was like, we need to create an octopus fan club, and you and me need to figure out how I can be the marketer and you be like the Jane Goodall of octopus or the Beyonce of octopus, and we need to take over the world. And she goes, that's great. I have no interest in that whatsoever. She was like, but I'll let you go like be the octopus king, and I will support you. And it wasn't until, and you got the book that I sent you, this past year, we wrote The Secrets of the Octopus together. It's a full circle moment because back in 2015, I reached out to her, and in 2024, I wrote the book Secrets of the Octopus with her with National Geographic. And so now it's kind of like my first foray into really being, talking to people and, letting people know, letting my freak flag octopus fly, and just kind of like letting people know, hey, I know a lot about all of these different species all around the world, and it's time to right all of these media wrongs on how people view the octopus.
I love it.
That's kind of like the long story long on that. But now we run an organization. We founded it in 2015, but launched the nonprofit in 2018. We have a curriculum that's in schools. We have Octopus Superhero Academy. We go to STEM events for kiddos. We go to trade shows, all over the world now, and we really just educate on, how this animal that's been around since, the dawn of time, really deserves to be looked at a little bit closer, because they represent resiliency, adaptability, all things. When people say, "Are you trying to save the octopus?" It's like they don't need saving. Like humans, like we're new here. We're the new kids on the block. We're really trying to figure shit out. Octopuses, they have figured out that they don't need long lifespans. They've figured out that, all this really cool stuff. And so it's just like, consider the octopus more and use it kind of as as something that, we kind of should aspire to. Like all of it, it's problem solved its whole entire life. So all the problems that the octopus has solved, like, they're just now doing technology on octopus suckers. Like in 2024, they published a study where they're like, oh, we should probably look more at the octopus suckers for adhesion stuff.
Yeah.
And so there's so much to look at and be inspired by. AI is now looking at their decentralized nervous system and how, their arms are able to make decisions without the use of their central brain. That they can go off and perform tasks and not mess with the central brain. It'd be like you sitting on the couch and being like, hey, can you go find the remote? I'm trying to watch.
Yeah, I thought about this for editing. If I could just have a couple editing and just watching TV. No, yeah, you're right. I mean, look, the octopus is a great metaphor for so many. It's like this. There's this superhero things that it can do. And well, look, I mean, justice for octopus. You've clearly provided justice. You got 500,000 followers, I think, on TikTok and Instagram, or maybe more even.
Yeah, we have close to 1 million across, and that's the other thing too is like. Our social media accounts, we get over 30 million views across our accounts every single month, sometimes more, depending on who talks about us. We have tons of celebrity followers. People are really starting to take hold and look at the octopus as a creature that is super cool. And I can't wait to develop more resources for everybody. So even the octopuses that I got you, if people are interested in supporting octopus education, if you go to adoptanoctopus.com, you can totally help us write more, hire more scientists, license more photography, and really keep building our octopus kingdom.
we got to get you to sponsor one of those Nat Geo cruises where we all go on and just do octopus themed events.
I'm totally down for that.
Well, thanks so much for giving us a little glimpse into the world of the octopus. And if we ever have any more octopus stories, please jump on anytime. People can follow you, Octonation, on Instagram and TikTok, and they can get the link to the book there. And anything else I'm missing?
Nope. secretsoftheoctopus.com if you're curious about the book. Octonation, if you're curious about more about this octopus riding this mako shark and want to get into like the nitty gritty geeky stuff of it, we're just about to publish today a blog on that and kind of go through, how the internet kind of reacted to it and like kind of like not debunking stuff, but just like how they've been doing this, with dolphins, with sharks, with people, with eels. They've been pretty much doing this for millions and millions of years. So if you're curious about that, octonation.com. And yeah, anytime you want me on to talk about a popular headline, people love using the octopus in headlines because it seems like they're always going viral. So it speaks for itself. I mean, here we have Shark Week. Let's get Octo Month. Let's get some but again, justice for the octopus is really really smart to be able to do, to have something you're interested. I always tell people online, if you're interested in something, there is a market for it, and there's a market for educating others. So you're doing great work, and we appreciate you stopping by today to share it with us. Awesome. Thanks, Dave.
Of course.